Hello guys, welcome to Daddy Share Space and welcome to my channel. So as you can see, I am not back in the shop yet. I had a pretty busy day at work, and so tomorrow I'm gonna get out there and get to shuffling that shop equipment around to see if I could get back in the shop so that I can possibly do the unboxing of the Woodpeckers T-Square that I purchased, and also the Polini Pocket Rule. So today I came across a video on YouTube that was talking about artificial intelligence. Now, as you guys may know, if you look at my channel, you can see I have a wide variety of interests. I used to do videos on the Vuzix Blade. The only reason why I kind of backed off of that was simply because the company itself came out. I believe it was the CEO, and he, was very open about the fact that they're kind of having a shift, and they're, I think, focusing more on their waveguide technology and maybe licensing that to other companies. And if that, there's a possibility that the Facebook, their smart glasses that are not out yet, I heard the guy, I guess his name is Zuckerberg or whatever, mention waveguide, and the only other time I've heard about waveguide was with Vuzix, to be quite honest. So I don't know if their technology is going to be used in that, but kudos to them if that's what actually happens. Now, what I wanted to mention about AI is very simple. So I don't know if this is going to happen for sure, but I feel pretty confident and comfortable that this may be the process. Now, if you guys remember, years ago, they probably still sell them, I'm not 100% sure, but those box cameras where you buy them from, like a CVS or a Walmart, and it had like 12 photos or maybe 24 photos, and that was all the pictures that you could take. So you had to be very strategic and committed when you took photos. Well, then we had the advent of the smartphone, and the smartphone gives us the ability to just take unlimited photos without any kind of concept of what we're doing, how much storage that's taken up. You just kind of just hit the click, you hit the shutter button. So try to follow me here. So we start taking unlimited numbers of photos. Another thing, if you notice, if you look at Outlook, if you look at Gmail, Yahoo Mail, all of these email services that came up earlier in the internet time, and we would just be sending each other letters and emails, just like unlimited, not thinking about the in basket and such. And then I remember some years ago, I can't remember exactly the year, but basically I remember reading an article or possibly watching a video about a gentleman who had, I want to say, like a terabyte worth of stuff stored in Amazon's like AWS cloud. Now, the significance of that is this: once a lot of people got comfortable using email, once a lot of people got comfortable taking photos that go into no space or whatever, you just take photo after photo after photo, and you just feel like you have unlimited storage, if you will. Same thing with sending emails. And then all of a sudden, all the big players, Microsoft with Outlook, Amazon with their cloud service, Google with their Gmail and cloud service, all of a sudden everybody came out and said, now you have to pay. Now you have to pay for anything over, let's say, X or Y size. If it's 2 gigabytes, 5 gigabytes, I don't even remember. But the bottom line is, if you store over that much data in the cloud, you now have to pay a monthly fee going on into perpetuity. And a lot of these services only offer you 1 terabyte of data to be able to store, even if you pay extra money. Some of them offer 2 if you pay the money. Now, it doesn't really curb your photo taking or video taking, if you will. I mean, unless you run out of space. But what it does is, let's say you have a family and you take like 500 pictures or 500 videos, and you're not worried about it because it's stored in the cloud. But the thing is, let's say, I don't know, 300 of them are just basically trash. Things that you would have never taken with a box camera you know, because you had limited photos to take. Well, now you have 200 to 300 photos in the cloud that you're paying for, and it's not super intuitive to be able to sort through 500 photos to find all the ones that are trash, to delete them easily. It's also a process when you go to download. You know, you have to get a zip file to download, and if you think about it, even if you zip file and download today, the photos that you take on that day or the day after are still going up to the cloud. Now, so you see, I see a pattern here. And that pattern is, if you look at things like, okay, right now, I guess the iPhone 16 isn't selling as well as they would like. And I personally am trying my best not to buy a smartphone right now, and who knows when I will ever buy one again. But when you think about a company, you think about, imagine if you started a company, and if you started that company today and you made a certain degree of profit, and then after you started making that profit, you decided, oh, I can double or triple my revenue if I hire an employee. So you hire an employee. Once you hire that employee, after year one of having an employee, they're going to want a raise. They're going to want more benefits, so on and so forth. And so in order to keep up with that, with the economies of scale in that way, you have to continue to make more and more profit. Well, if you sell a thingamabob, and your thingamabob just sells like gangbusters to everybody that it'll go to, well, and let's say your thingamabob has, you know, a 3-year warranty, well, then you're not going to make any sales within that 3 years because your product is good and it lasts for 3 years. And let's say your max market is 100, let's say 1 million people. So everybody that wants your device, it's only 1 million people, but all 1 million have one. That means for 3 years, let's say you hire an employee in year 2 and you sold, you know, 1 million pieces of, 1 million thingamabobs. And for 3 years from then, or for 2 years from then, you're not going to make any kind of new revenue because you sold a device that actually is good for 3 years, which means you're not bringing in more sales. So the only way that you can pivot and make more money in order to pay that employee's raise, and obviously this is an oversimplified way of explaining this, in order for you to pay that guy a raise, you either need to develop a total new product, which is going to cost more money in R&D in order to bring in more revenue, and maybe you can sell another 1 million products to those 1 million people that are the people that buy your product. Now, so you've got market saturation with your product, your physical product that you make. So then what do? If you look at, let's say, Google search and the way that Google works, it's paid by advertising dollars. And so whereas before, when we would use something like Gmail to send out emails and Outlook to send out emails and so on and so forth, what we didn't understand as a consumer is that even though we're sending things across the internet, it needs to be stored somewhere. And that somewhere is called a server. And so when we store our data on the servers of these companies, that takes up space. Over time, you have to rent that space. You have to pay more money to get that space. So that being said, it's beneficial to a company for you to continue to send emails, for you to continue to, like, say, not keep your inbox totally clear. It's beneficial to the company for you to keep taking photos with your phone and just trust that it's going to be stored in the back end on a server somewhere. Small side note, I happen to have a Synology server here at my home, and it has about 70 terabytes worth of storage, of which I've already basically filled up. However, that setup, I believe it's an 8-bay drive Synology NAS, was over $4,000 to start. So storing footage and storing photos and storing digital information is not cheap. That's for sure. So when a company says, okay, I'm going to charge you $10, I'm going to charge you $20, so on and so forth, to store your digital photos, your emails, all of this type of stuff, it's not really an unreasonable thing. I think the part of it to me that's a little bit challenging is the fact that when the infrastructure was built to create the cloud and to create that kind of infrastructure where our data would go up and live in the cloud, if you will, or on someone else's server, we didn't know that eventually there was going to be rent due. We were under the impression that it was free. And so that's what made us not really think responsibly about taking photos, about taking videos, about having your inbox totally full with tons of email. I've heard about people that when their email fills up, they simply just start a new email because they don't want to pay for extra storage in their email. And it gets to the point, if you've got 30, 40, 50,000 emails, when are you going to sort through all of those? How are you going to know which ones are junk, which ones are needed? I myself have had to go back and try to comb through years of emails just to find a receipt for a particular product. So it's convenient to have your stuff stored in the cloud. It's very expensive to store these things at home on your own, but it's a perfect business model when you think about if you make thingamabobs, which is a physical item, and your thingamabob has flooded the market to the point to where nobody's buying, you know, like say for instance with the iPhone 16, if everybody has an iPhone 16 that's going to buy it, that's the cap as far as money that's going to be made in regards to that iPhone 16. So now there's no more way to make revenue. And that's why we've seen things over the years of like basically power bricks not being included or cables not being included and all of this kind of a la carte nickel and dime the consumer type of mindset. Because if you think about the example that I gave before, these companies don't just have one employee, they have thousands of employees, sometimes hundreds of thousands of employees that are expecting stuff like annual raises. You can see there's companies out there right now where employees are striking or threatening to strike because they want, you know, wage increases, right? Why do I talk about all this before talking about AI, which is what I brought up in the beginning? This is what I can see happening. I'll give one more example, then I'll get into it. If you look at GoPro, I subscribe to GoPro Premium, whatever it's called. And what that service offers, it was created a few years ago. It's not super old. But the way, what they created was a system where you pay, I want to say it was $59 at least when I started. You pay $59 annually. So that creates an annual income or revenue for GoPro continually, which they didn't have before. Before, it was just selling their thingamabob, which is the GoPro. Well, now they have a way to get money in annually, a certain amount for, let's say if that's, you know, 1 million people, you know, $59 million, that comes into their revenue budget. Now, what does the GoPro membership include? One, it touts that it's that they insure your cameras. That means if you have any problems with your cameras, then you can get a new camera if your GoPro breaks at a reduced price. You also get a discount on all of GoPro's items if you buy it from the GoPro store, which basically redirects a lot of purchases that maybe you would have spent at Best Buy or Amazon right back into GoPro, because before their stuff was kind of a premium price. Now you're going to pay upfront a annual fee in order to get access to cheaper prices, which is, you know, a pretty good business decision. But the other part that is connected to that is free cloud storage. When enough people, this is just my opinion, this is what I think is going to happen, because we know that storage in the cloud costs money, and as it gets bigger and bigger, it costs more and more money. Once enough people get their footage stored in the cloud, that's when there's going to be an annual subscription for that storage. And I believe, you know, based upon when you think about business and capitalism, it's going to be when you have too much up there to download. It's going to be where it's very inconvenient, where you have like years of birthday videos, years of wedding photos and videos in the cloud that you store for free. And you're busy with your life, just taking care of business. And then one day you're going to get a letter in the mail or an email or a notification that the storage is going to be capped at X amount or Y amount. And when it gets capped, you're going to find yourself to be above that cap. And then that's going to do the same thing as the examples that I gave before. and it's going to create a continual revenue stream. So first the revenue stream was, okay, I sold all my GoPros that I can sell. Now I'm going to sell a membership with all of these kind of random little benefits that go into it. And along with that, I'm going to get access to all of the footage and files that you record on your personal GoPro. Because I noticed when I first had my older GoPros, I didn't notice as much that it always wanted to be connected to my phone. Now I knew you could connect it to your phone, but it seems like recently with my GoPros, not only does it want to always connect to my phone, it's always trying to upload stuff to the cloud. And being that I'm already paying extra storage to Apple, I'm already paying extra storage to Microsoft, as well as having to spend money to build my own cloud solution at home, I'm like, I don't want to get caught in that trap again. I don't want to have another company holding data and files that I create on my device that I pay money for, so that later they can come back and charge me to hold those things. It's kind of like someone selling you 10 cars and then you don't have anywhere to store them. And so they're like, you know what? I got an offer for you. I've got a garage for you to store those 10 cars in. You only have to pay this amount of money in perpetuity. It would have been you would have been a little bit sharper if you would have recognized that, wait a minute, I can't store 10 cars, so I should never buy 10 cars because I can't store them. I'm going to have an additional cost that's going to go on forever because I got accustomed to having 10 cars. I like having 10 cars. And because I like having 10 cars, I now have to pay this extra fee that would have never existed before. Now back to AI. Today we use Bing, we use Google. These are search engines. We look up stuff all the time. And right now is the big time of AI. AI is everywhere. Artificial intelligence this, artificial intelligence that. I don't want to focus right now on jobs and jobs being lost or anything like that. What I want to focus on is search. I can see a world where basically if you look at some of these newer phones, so you got Apple Intelligence coming on the iPhone, you've got Android with their version of intelligence, and all of these phones are saying something to you, or these manufacturers. And the key is with ChatGPT, which is an AI type of engine or whatever it is, however you describe it, I'm not that technical. You have a free version, you have a paid version, right? So the free version is for you, it's very similar to like you writing emails or you taking photos. All of your stuff is being put in a big bucket and they're storing it somewhere. Now the part that they're not really being open about is they're scanning all of that stuff, creating profiles on you and knowing a lot more about you than you know about yourself, targeted marketing and advertising, right? So as you put your stuff in these cloud solutions, you are essentially, it's kind of like you take all of your valuables or things that maybe you don't know is valuable, and you store it in someone else's house, and they have the ability to rummage through your stuff at any point in time, and they learn different things about you by doing that, right? And that's fine if it's harmless, if you say, but some of us like to have privacy, and if you want privacy, then that's not a good thing. So the same thing, I notice now when I do searches at the top, you'll see like an artificial intelligence response. That is what's being pushed up to the top. And we hear AI every day, all day, up, down, backwards, forwards, AI, AI, AI. Most average consumers don't even understand what it is. Most average consumers are really thrilled and they're, tickled about something filling in a calendar box or something articulate. Like if you go to write a letter to someone, basically AI is going to help you to speak better. Well, I mean, I find it to be very confusing, because when you talk about AI, I remember reading a story or watching a video about someone that was in college and they typed up a report, and I don't remember which service they used, but they used one of those services very similar to something like a Grammarly or something like that. And their work got flagged as plagiarism, or basically that it was using AI type technology. So, okay, you have a person that goes to school to get a degree, And when they go to school to get a degree, they use something like, a tool like a Grammarly or some kind of AI feature, and then they get discredited because they use that tool. However, that tool is being pushed everywhere, and they're telling you this is such a good thing. But from my vantage point, I don't see how it's so good if you don't allow it in the education system to be used for people to progress, from grade to grade, or to get the whatever it is, to pass the class, if you will. If it's not legal to use there, yet you create a society that's dependent on it, then what is the end goal? It's almost like you're saying something's good and bad at the same time. I go to a college, the dean of the college tells me my paper's disqualified because I use AI, yet AI is everywhere and it's being promoted as a beneficial tool because it can help you write a paper. It's kind of like double marketing, but it's not being very specific about saying, well, if you're in college and you're trying to get your degree, don't use AI because that information is not coming from you, and that can backfire on you, and you could not pass your class and get your degree. But then on the other hand, it's being created as this is the next best thing for everybody and anybody. This is the future. This is that and the other. All right. I know I'm talking about a lot of things, but let me try to get a little bit more focused, because to me, I think that AI is a very, very broad topic. Now, I notice when I go into, whether it be Bing, whether it be into Google, you'll see AI data at the very top. Now, there have been memes and stuff about you asking AI a certain thing and it gives you a poor answer back, or something that's not very consistent or good. But over time, like I guess they call them language learning models or whatever you want to call it, but we also call it AI. Over time, that's going to get better and better, very similar to like search. Way back in the day when the internet first started, they had relatively primitive versions of search. But it was like, when the internet first started, it was like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Over the years, things like Bing, and more so Google, because that's what we term it as, that's the cliche, or that's the general phrase that we use. I'm going to Google it. What happened is things got to be more refined and more specific, and Google became way more useful to the average person. So if you wanted to look up, turtles or TVs or, anything, it would focus down and find that information for you, whether it was someone that wrote an article, whether it was a video that was created, whether it was a professional university. Well, with this layer of AI and artificial intelligence, which is being pushed all the way to the top of your search queries, it's training you to trust that pathway. And what I think is probably going to happen is regular search is going to start to return worse and worse results. Regular search, more than likely, I can foresee this happening. Whereas now the average person, it's kind of like, let's say you bought a really nice typewriter and you like typing letters. So you type in letters, and then email comes out. And even though it saves you more paper and is very convenient, and you could just hit a button and send a letter to this person or that person, whereas if you type a letter on a typewriter, you actually have to put it physically in an envelope, you have to put a stamp on it, you have to mail it. Once you get really efficient with that, you're not necessarily looking to change or to evolve to the next thing. However, if everybody switches over to email and you're writing handwritten letters, your interaction with the world is going to kind of go downhill, because people are going to get tired of you sending them physical paper letters. They're going to get tired of the turnaround time because email is more instantaneous, right? Well, the same thing with search. Over time, I can see search results on basic Bing and basic Google going down the pot, where you start to look up things and it starts to look more like when the internet first developed. And the reason why that would happen is simply because, where's the money at? Well, these new phones that are going to be sold for like the first year or the first seasons, for you to get used to using artificial intelligence and using these features, is going to be free, very much like email was free. And then on the back end, you're going to be charged. And it's going to be a charge that's in perpetuity. So imagine, let's go back to the thingamabobs. If you own a company and you sell thingamabobs, and you've totally flooded the market with your thingamabobs, and you have employees that you need to pay and they need to get raises, you need to come up with some way to continue to get revenue continuously forever. One of the companies that's been talked about in a negative way, Adobe, is a company that's kind of figured out how to do that. A lot of people are not fans of Adobe because what they did is they took something that used to cost like $500, $600, $700 for a perpetual license and turned it into a subscription model, of which it means that they're going to receive money forever. And as long as you use their products, and the more you use their products, it becomes very sticky to where you don't really want to go to another option like something like DaVinci Resolve or maybe Affinity, because you're so used to using Adobe's tools, you just keep going back to it. And so whereas before you could just be a one and done, maybe buy all of their little applications for $600-700 a piece, which is a lot of money out of pocket by itself. But now they're like, oh, but if you only pay $59 a month annually, all in one bulk payment of like basically like $600 or close to it, then you get access to all of our applications. And that sounds great, but it requires you to pay that $600 up front, and it also requires you to pay it forever, because as soon as you don't pay it, you don't have access. As soon as you don't pay for that extra storage for your photos or your emails and such and all your stored data, well then you no longer have access to it. And then that'll make you be looking around for one of those 12 or 24 photo box cameras or a notebook to write all this stuff down, to go basically back to basics, because it's like you didn't realize how it's like getting a credit card and they keep raising your balance, and then eventually you can't pay anymore because it becomes that expensive. And so I see this model coming with AI as being an indefinite form of money being made by companies. And the most unfortunate part to me is the fact that AI is being trained right now with your behavior, with your photos, with your videos, with your information for free. Because we use, cell phones, smartphones, computers, webcams, all of these different things are taking our data, creating profiles for us. Yes, sometimes to market to us, but also, if you think about it, it's also essentially to create a system or a situation where before you could take a breath, you have to pay for it. Before you could do anything, you're going to have to pay for everything. So imagine if you have a person that decides, I don't want to evolve, I don't want to use artificial intelligence, I am happy with my Google experience. Well, just like the person that's writing the letters, if the Google search experience starts to degrade because 90% of the people have moved over to paying for AI answers and responses, essentially AI is replacing Google Assistant and Cortana, if you want to use that name, or Alexa. So it's essentially, if you really want to get down to it, it's a rebranding of the same thing. Yes, the technology may be a little bit more advanced. It may be a little bit more sticky, if you will, but it's a rebranding of the same thing and selling you back something that was already being done already, i.e. like when you search in Google, you're putting data in there for them to regurgitate what you want back. But the reality is, let's say, how do you explore something totally different? If your circle is only your circle and you can only look up what you can imagine in your own mind, well then essentially how useful is it, right? If all you can see is the color green and you can't see any other colors, when you go to put your information in that search box, only thing that's going to come back is green, because that's all you can see. When we interact with other people, we may learn about other colors and other ideas and other thought processes. Then you put that into the search box and you get different information, which broadens your pool of information. So we can all become very closed-minded and only look at one thing or a singular thing. So if AI, if you go, let's say you're doing a multiple choice questionnaire. Back in the day, multiple choice questions used to be basically a lower tier of answering by comparison to story answers, or what do you call the written, the long form answers, right? So like if someone asks you about a particular concept and you have A, it's this, B, it's that, C, it's this, D, it's that, versus them saying, what, describe this concept, and you have to write a paragraph about it. Which one is going to determine that you actually understand? Well, obviously, if you have to write the paragraph, because you're going to have to articulate in your own words what it means. If you use A, B, C, D, there is a chance that you may luckily get it. You got a 25% chance to get it right, because you got 4 answers that you can select from. And so you may be able to deduce from the line of questioning and actually select the right answer without really knowing it, right? And so imagine, like we'll say something like AI, you're asking AI for a question, right? And you're thinking it's a broad, open-ended question. But in reality, AI and these programs are written by people. People have agendas. And let's say when you ask the question, because let's say you want to go east, right? We're going to use this as a travel thing. Let's say you want to go east. So you Google east. And so you want to know everything about east. Well, the thing is, what if the person behind AI wants you to go west? Well, it won't be overt. It won't be aggressive. It'll be covert, where basically every answer that you get will be slightly more west than east. And every time you answer the question, each time it's going to be more west than east, because remember, it's not a story answer. It's not an answer where you're getting or giving what you want. You want to go west. That is where your mind is made up. It's kind of like, I'm not a political person, but it's like, I am a leftist or I am a rightist, whatever, wherever you're at. So imagine you're answering a questionnaire, and the questionnaire is more the other side than the other. And those are the only choices that they give you. So you pick the one that's most applicable to you, because you can't proceed to the next level of questioning until you answer. So you pick that answer, and then the next one is even more east. And the next one is even more east, until you're facing east now. Your intention was to go west, but through a series of multiple choice questioning that is predetermined. It's kind of like, in a way, keeping up with the Joneses. The Joneses are controlling you. You want a red car, but every time you go to look up a red car, you see an orange car, a yellow car, a blue car. And as you keep trying to select what you want, you never see what you want. Orange is closer to red than yellow, right? So in that first tier, you see a blue, which you totally don't want. You see a yellow, you don't want that. And then you see like an orange or something like that, and maybe a pink. And so you have to pick between those colors. And then the next stage of the game, there's different colors. And those colors are moving you away from what you originally wanted to do. And you don't even see it happening. It's kind of like you go into a grocery store and you're like, ooh, I like this particular food. And so you buy it every day, every day, every day. And then it's a particular brand. I see this a lot with Costco. And then you go back in, and what they're selling, it changes subtly. So first it's brand A, but now it's brand B. And maybe there's lower volume, maybe it tastes a little bit different, but it's like, but I really like that thing. So you keep buying it, right? Instead of because most of us as consumers are kind of lazy, instead of you basically saying, I'm not buying anything if I can't get what I want, what you do is you start to kind of get guided down a pathway, and eventually you end up making the choice that someone who is a lot higher in this society than you, the choice that they wanted you to make. So it's not an overnight decision. It's a slow trickle of decisions. It's like someone leaving breadcrumbs. And if you're hungry enough, you'll pick up that breadcrumb. Then you'll pick up the next one. Then you'll pick up the next one, because it's an inevitable thing. You have to eat, right? I know it seems like a flight of ideas, but trust me, if you really listen to what I'm saying, you'll understand what I'm saying. If another person has the ability to figure you out enough to know what you want and what you need and anticipate it, they can completely control you. You may never know. You may never know that they're controlling you, but the reality of the matter is it's about laying the proper breadcrumbs in the proper order. And so anybody in society that is like, you know what, I'm dug in, I'm not going in this direction or that direction. These people are essentially not very good for the agenda of someone who is wanting everybody in society to move in one particular direction or another. And the unfortunate thing is, it's like if you are, like, say, the author of an artificial intelligence, you created it, right? You worked on it, you're making the main algorithms. It's never going to ask you a question that you don't want to answer because you programmed it. But everybody else is fair game. You know, it's an old biblical saying that's kind of closely related, where it talks about how they came to ask Jesus for tax money, and Jesus said, who do these people? I'm paraphrasing because I'm a little bit rusty, but the bottom line is, he says, who do they tax? Their friends or others, or relatives or others? And he said others. And that's how it is. So essentially, the people that create these systems and these structures, like the person that created, email, the person that created all of these different things, they're never going to pay for that service. And nor are their friends going to pay to the extent of anybody that's outside of that service. So if I create artificial intelligence search, I'm never going to pay for it. But I'm going to receive a lot of money from other people who do pay for it. And that's capitalism 101. You stand on the backs of others to get yourself to the top. The last thing I'll say before I get out of here is, imagine you built a supercomputer as big as you can possibly imagine, full of all kinds of semiconductors, all kinds of processors, as many cores as you want, as many GPUs as you could imagine. You built this computer, and then you made it to where it could run, let's say, on solar power, or maybe on some kind of natural type of thing, right? Maybe it can run on thin air. And you take this super computer, this super artificial intelligence computer, and you take it to the middle of the Sahara Desert, and you just set it there. And you leave it there for 1,000 years, and not one single person walks past it or interacts with it. How smart do you think it'll be at the end of that 1,000 years? Without our data, without our information, artificial intelligence is really nothing. Artificial intelligence is essentially your information being packaged up and sold back to you, the consumer. All right, guys, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my video, and I'll see you in the next one.